a good speaker, a good motivated, a good advisors who can help us with more information about what's happening in the market and with the companies and everything. This session will be with the SEO of ITA Investor Trust, and I will give the speak please to my friend, my brother, my partner, Fred Belman, to introduce Phil, and we will also there is a small video about ITA, and we will start the session. Fred, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Naji. And thank you everybody for taking the time to join us. I know that everybody's busy. Either some have started going back to work, some are busy at home, and some are busy trying to keep their minds clear to figure out what we're going to do. I'm Fred Belman, my partner Naji Haddad. Together we've got a combined 40 years of experience in the offshore life and investment business. And today with us is, like Naji said, Mr. Phil Story. He's the Senior Executive Officer and the Head of Distribution for Europe, Middle East, Africa for a company known as Investors Trust. Thank you, Phil, for joining us on such short notice, because I know we didn't give you a lot of time. But maybe you can just give us a brief about yourself, maybe a little bit of ITA and the video that Naji was mentioning.
Yeah, sure, no problem. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, a bit of background. Yes, 26 years in the industry now. Started off in the UK doing your job, as a sales guy in the UK, building up a client bank of high net worth individuals. And then eventually back in 2000, started working offshore. So over 20 years now offshore, covering Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, Middle East, some of Europe, Africa. So pretty much all of the globe where you guys be doing business offshore. So yeah, a lot of experience there doing that. And in the last few years, been based in Dubai for the last 16 years. Prior to Investors Trust, I was the general manager for Zurich, Middle East and Africa. But for the last 6 years now, I set up Investors Trust Dubai operations in the DIFC, which I'm sure many of you know. And we've been growing from there at the base over the last 6 years. Working with Fred now for nearly 5 years, and Naji for the last few years. So, and we've been growing the business around the region, both Middle East, into Africa now, into India, and Europe as well. So we've been doing a lot of work with some of the guys in Cyprus who we've met, and I think are on the call today. Some of the guys in Greece we've had some chats with. So yeah, so it's been going really well. And as I say, that's a little bit of background just to myself and where I've been in the past.
Thank you. Jad, do you have that video?
Sure. Investors Trust is an international group of insurance companies and subsidiaries in multiple jurisdictions around the world, with a mission to provide international investors with access to global markets through an extensive offering of insurance-linked investment products. It is our modernized approach to savings and investments that sets us apart from the competition over the last 20 years. The company has become a leader in the industry by continuing its focus on flexible solutions, enhanced opportunities, advanced technologies, and world-class customer support. Investors Trust established its first insurance company based out of the Cayman Islands, together with a corporate support office located in Miami. We introduced our state-of-the-art transactional website and first in the industry to offer online fund transfers in multiple languages. Less than a year later, the company started distribution in Asia and began to expand further around the globe. 2 new products which launched the evolution of our product platform. The Platinum and S&P 500 Index products have continued to be our most successful products to date. In 2008, due to its global growth, we made the decision to establish 2 service points, one in Uruguay and one in Hong Kong, to be closer to its growing markets. Investors Trust introduced its fixed income portfolio, an excellent complement to any diversified mutual fund portfolio. That same year, The company introduced the electronic application, another first in the industry that streamlines the application process by implementing secure and modern technologies. The company initiated its corporate responsibility program, was later formalized into Investors Trust Cares, where we defined our commitments and established efforts to improve our impact on the world around us. 2011, Investors Trust launched one of its most successful savings solutions, Evolution. In 2012, the company opened a new service point in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, is licensed by the Lebanon Financial Services Authority, LFSA. In 2014, we expanded our product lineup with the launch of our personalized portfolio bond, Access Portfolio, designed to provide investors with optimal freedom and flexibility. In 2015, Investors Trust acquired its license from the Dubai Financial Services Authority, DFSA, and opened a new office in Dubai, as it's an ideal hub for businesses wishing to tap into the fast emerging financial markets of the Middle East, Africa, and Indian subcontinent. An account access platform, all-in-one stop shop for managing accounts, including our resolution center, a tool available in multiple languages where financial advisors can get fast, reliable responses so they can spend more time servicing their clients and less time waiting for answers. In the beginning of 2019, we became the first company in the industry to offer a multi-jurisdictional approach to clients around the globe. With the establishment of a licensed insurance company in Puerto Rico, effectively started providing clients with the power to select from multiple jurisdictions and build a portfolio based on their individual needs. Over the past 2 decades, Investors Trust has seen great success and has emerged as a leader in the international unit-linked industry. The commitment to its markets and forward-thinking mentality have positioned the group for even greater growth and expansion in the years to come.
Hi guys.
I think I was muted. Okay, so but I think there was a couple of people that were saying that the voice wasn't very clear, the sound. I kind of felt the same here, but I don't think that there's much we could do on that. But you know, Phil, I've known you and ITA since you guys started in Dubai 5 years ago. So we discussed a lot of times how ITA is the disruptor for our industry, just like the Uber was the taxi industry. ITA has been the disruptor for the offshore financial services industry. My question to you is, how are things going for ITA right now with everything that's going on in the world today? And the reason I'm asking you that is I looked through some of the participants and we have a lot of our clients that are online right now.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, good question. I think for me personally, it's been quite interesting. We were just chatting before this, Fred. You know, the world's in a strange place at the moment, and you know, I'm currently based in the UK because I got locked out of Dubai when the travel ban started. So we're all having to adapt, and I'm having to manage the team from Dubai here. Getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure we're there to be able to talk to you guys in the Middle East, and carrying on until now, you know, to make sure we get to talk to the guys in Europe and Africa as well. So so personally, yeah, it's been a bit interesting, but we're getting there, and hopefully get back to Dubai soon and get to see you guys as well in Lebanon and Cyprus. But work-wise, yeah, you're right. I mean, we have tried to be the disruptor in the market, whether that is coming through with the online applications, with new products, etc., etc. And I had a great comment on one of your presentations last week that Naji was chatting to, and I was watching, I think, a recording of it, was around the big fish. And in the past, it used to be the big fish that would take over, but nowadays it's the fast fish. So I would see us definitely as the fast fish, you know, adapting fast to the changes. We were chatting yesterday, Fred, about new products. You know, we're changing things all the time. We've got 2 new products coming out soon at the 1st of July. So you've always got to be continually adapting and making sure you're moving with the times, making sure that the solutions that we have, whether that's the technology or whether that's the product itself that the client needs to buy, is what the client needs now. And I think you have to be that fast fish now. You have to be able to adapt quickly. You've seen that with, as you say, with Uber. You've seen it with even with the biotech companies at the moment, who the ones that are succeeding have been the smaller ones, who got there early. There's been a number of stories around those, Faxitech and Novartis, and so on. They're growing ridiculously fast because they took that early lead by being small, by being nimble, and focusing on certain areas that they're good. And I think that's what we've done. We've managed to focus on some of those key areas where we succeed. Business so far this year, we're having a record year. I've literally just come off a call with the bosses in Miami about an hour and a half ago, and so far we're having, as I say, a record year. So long may that continue, and I think part of that solution has been the technology.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the experience for the last 5 years using your technology, and I have to say that I really haven't found anything that compares yet. And it's really important for the client, for the advisor. I mean, from the advisor's point of view, it's our job is to make our life as easy as possible to be able to serve our clients the best way that we can. So the less time that we have to worry on the back office part, the more time that we can spend giving the right advice to the client.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, as you know, the more time you spend with clients, generally the more the clients will buy from you, and therefore the more you will earn. So whatever we can do to help with that. So whether it's the technology for the online application, which takes 15 to 20 minutes to do, and as you know, the process for that, I think it was you where I think about 6 months ago, Fred, you did an application and you phoned me whilst I was in a meeting. I couldn't take that call. I sent a little message back saying, I'll call you back shortly. By the time I called you back an hour later, the application had already issued, and the solution had been found. So we're not promising an hour every time, but these things can happen when you're using online technology, and we pretty much guarantee 24-hour turnaround for any new application coming in that's sort of clean and easily processed. So by having that sort of slick process and having it in multiple languages and all of those other things that you had mentioned, and you saw some of the global offices there that we use, having that coverage obviously helps with processing 24 hours a day almost, to make sure that we can turn things around quickly.
Excellent. Phil, the reason that Naji and I really wanted to do this webinar, and for all the people that are listening, in particular, what I really wanted to talk about was Lebanon and what it's going through. And I know that we have a lot of advisors and clients on the call now from Cyprus and from Greece who have also experienced what Lebanon is currently experiencing. Your background is you're an economist, okay? And you visited us in Lebanon on several occasions, and your company had did a study of the country before you even allowed us to be able to bring in clients from Lebanon, if you remember.
Yeah.
So you know what's going on in Lebanon. I mean, we experiencing now social uprising. We have a banking system that's on the brink of a collapse. We have capital controls where we can't get our money out of the country. There's no hard currency, no US dollars, no euros, no sterling pounds. The local currency has devalued 70% in the last 6 months. We've defaulted on our euro bonds, and now the banks are talking about defaulting on their preferred shares for $4 billion. And. So, the Lebanese expats, or I think all expats around the world, they trust their countries. Okay, that's why they put money there and they invest it. But I think now they're at a point, I mean, we're at the point in Lebanon, and other countries have already gone through it, where everybody is worried about losing everything that they've done in their life so far. And I know that Lebanon is not the first place, and it's not going to be the last place that this is going to happen. Okay, but the reason I'm asking you is because from your international experience and having seen similar events in other countries, what advice would you give moving forward? Because everything's going to change now.
It is. I mean, you're right. You've seen these things happen. The currency devaluations in Cyprus, Russia, all over Africa, Latin America. These things are always happening. Where markets struggle at certain stress points, and obviously now as a massive stress point. I saw a great analogy the other day. about the current market conditions. And no one, we haven't been through this before. There's never been a modern market scenario like there is now. 2008 was very different. 2008 was a train wreck. The foundations of the train track were not solid. The banks were not solid, and the train came off the track. It was a big crash. This is very different. This is, the analogy here is the train track is actually okay. The banks are pretty solid now. All of the stress testing that's been done is good. What's happened now is the trains have been moved off the track into the siding and parked there, and everything's just been parked. But now no one is quite sure, how do you get those trains back onto the track and get them moving again? Because they've all been parked up for a while. They're going to need to get a bit of oil in them. They need to get moving again. That whole system just needs to be kept moving. So it's a very different scenario now. And I think that it's affecting the whole globe, not just US, Europe, everywhere, China. But obviously, I think personally the biggest impact is where it's happening in countries like Lebanon and in some of the Asian countries where they're very reliant on that export market or money coming into that market from overseas, from the diaspora around the world sending money back. That's where there's having a big impact. And I think that's the problem we've got at the moment. So you've got that analogy globally of the trains being just taken off the track and how does it all get going? But then what happens longer term? I mean, who knows? It's economically, it's difficult. Markets react obviously very quickly. We saw this morning or overnight there was some news around a couple of the vaccines progressing quite well, and all of a sudden the markets this morning are up 2, 3, 4%, bang, straight away first thing. So for the next few months, the markets are going to be pretty volatile. It's going to be tricky to time that investment if you're looking at trying to do short-term timings of investments. But if you're looking at trying to get into the market for the longer term, that's different. And I think this is where I'm just going to do a couple of screen shares now, if I may, and just sort of show a couple of things about the longer term. Because I think the key thing here is if you look at long-term markets, we've spoken about Novartis already, but so if you look at today's markets, so that was today, massive increase, early doors in the S&P, similar in the FTSE as well. It's slowed back down again now, but again, that's the markets at the moment. They're reacting very, very quickly. So what we're looking at here is the long-term, and for us, one of obviously the biggest global advisors, obviously, is Buffett. And again, he's thinking long-term because no one knows what's going to happen for the next 3 months. Even for the next 3 years, things are going to be pretty volatile. But if you're thinking 10 years down the line and you're thinking longer term investments for your retirement, for your kids' education, for those sorts of goals, I think it's very different. And you can pretty much guarantee over that period the markets will be up. And if you look at this quote here from Warren Buffett, you can see here at 622 in his presentation to Berkshire Hathaway just a couple of weeks ago, he quotes, "In my view, for most people, the best thing to do is just own the S&P 500 index." Because at the end of the day, that is where the clients are going to make money. And the reason he says that is because of this good story here. This is the MSCI. You can do it for the S&P. This was the clearest one I could find. But generally, for the world index over the longer term, the markets always go up. You get the big downturns. You get the big drops in 2005, if you can see the mouse there, 2012, 2008, the global financial crisis. And even now, obviously, the drop, and it's come down a bit further than that since this was done. Those sorts of things will happen. These sorts of short-term scenarios will happen for 3 months, 6 months, a year. But if you're looking at over those 10 years, things will change, and you need to start investing now to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. I mean, if you look back at the markets, the 23rd of March, 24th of March was, at the moment, the optimum time pretty much to invest in most of the global markets. Did anybody here on this call invest money on those 2 days? I don't know. I nearly got it. I got the 25th of March. But the key thing is, since that point, the markets have come back by at least 10, 15%, some nearly 20%. So you've already missed a lot of that gain. So by trying to time the market, it's very, very difficult. You should just be investing regularly over the medium to long term to be able to make sure you take advantage of any of those dips when they happen. So if you look at those long-term averages, that's probably the key thing there. I think just a couple of other, we'll just share a couple of other slides because there was just a couple of other bits here that if we just go to this, there's a Sanlam one, during times. We've shared some articles here around, obviously, market volatility and remaining invested. And take a deep breath. As everyone says, take a deep breath before you make any of these investment decisions. Speak to your advisor. Make sure you're getting the best advice. And the key thing here is, if you look, for people, we talk about the S&P a lot. If you just go to Wikipedia, there's actually a really, really good table in Wikipedia whereby you can see the average returns over 5, 10, 15, 20 years and what the average returns rolling over those time periods have been. And if you go down to the bottom here, it gives you what those averages are down the bottom here. So for the 15-year, the worst 15 years had 4.24% return. And that's taking into account 2000, 2008, etc. And the average for pretty much all of these, if you're looking at 3, 10, 15, and 20 years, just think about the long-term averages and you're going to be getting a good return of 10% plus. Does that make sense, Fred?
Yeah, Phil. I mean, I think all investing, there's investing and there's gambling. So when we talk long-term, obviously we're talking about, being invested for the long term. I'm lucky that
Absolutely.
A lot of the people on the call, they know I'm lucky that I have a father that was born in 1918 and he died about 6 months ago. He was 102 years old. And one of the things, I keep going back to during this period that we're living through today, ladies and gentlemen, because we've never seen anything like this. So we don't have that experience, but there are people who did see things like this. And this is still what we're experiencing could be considered what we call in the United States a cakewalk. My father was born at the end of World War I. 22 million people had died. Then the Spanish flu epidemic hit. And I think that lasted until he was 4 years old at the time. 50 million people died from that. And then when he was probably, in his 18 or 20, the Great Depression hit in the US and unemployment went up to 25%. And the global GDP dropped 27%. And that kept going till he was probably around 30 years old. And then the country nearly collapses with the world economy. And then when you turn maybe 40, I guess he was 35, World War II starts. He goes and fights for the US government to get his nationality. I don't know how many millions of people died during that. I think 75 million people died during World War II. Then he went through the Korean War and the Vietnam War, and he lived through the dot-com bubble and all of these things. When I look at them, it kind of puts everything in perspective. What we're going through is very difficult, but he, let's say, went through those things 10 different times. And every time he says, he's like, it's always the same. Life goes on and people figure it out. And when the debt gets too high, they just issue more money. He said when he was a young man, he bought his first house for $5,000. Today, that house is worth probably $250,000 or $300,000. It's just the way the world works. So what we need to do is we need to focus on, first of all, getting out of this, is what he would tell me if he was still with me today. And to focus on, I think he would say, work harder on yourself than you do on your work, on your job, on whatever, and everything else will take care of itself, because you have to keep getting better and better and better, because this will end. I know it will, but who will come out as the stronger person? I know that's what he would tell me if he was sitting with me right now after living 102 years. He was in 1949, guys, he was worth around $6 million, which is about $60 million today. And all of a sudden, in 1 month's time, he lost everything. And the reason that he lost everything, this is one of the presentations I get, which I want to lead into offshore investing. As people, sometimes we have different liabilities that might attack us, guys. For us Lebanese in Lebanon, we trusted the system. It didn't work out so well. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I don't think it's going to end very well. In the day, my father never thought about investing offshore like the rich used to. One day, a very famous woman by the name of Margaret Mitchell was crossing the street in Atlanta, Georgia. She's the author of Gone with the Wind. She was the most famous person in Atlanta, Georgia at that time. And my father used to own taxi cabs, restaurants, jewelry stores, you name it, he owned it. One day, one of his taxi cab drivers decided when he finished his shift that he would get drunk on the way home. And when he was going home, he hit this lady, and 4 days later, she died. And they sued him, and they took everything. So, one lesson there, and one of the questions that I want to lead into, what's happening in Lebanon, what happened in Cyprus, what happened in Greece, what's currently happening in Venezuela and in Somalia and in Brazil and a lot of different places around the world, we can't change it. What's happened for us Lebanese right now, for the Cyprus people, for the Greek people, we can't change it. But all we can do is protect ourselves from having to go through that again. Phil, my question. Most of our clients are young and they still have a lot more working years ahead of them. So how could ITA fit into, you know, this type of planning for their future, knowing that everything they've done up to this point, for most of us, is stuck here? How do we go with ITA to move forward?
Good question, Fred, and thank you very much for that story. Really fascinating and a great example, a great personal example. I think these are quite often the most powerful stories, aren't they? So thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to what you were saying there, and you took away some of the lines I was going to use. It's sort of, you know, around this sort of, you know, the longer term investing. If you've got clients that are talking to you about investing, are they talking about investing for one day? No. They're talking about 1 week? No. 1 month? No. 1 year? No. It shouldn't be for that. If you're looking at investing, it should be for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. As you said, Fred, you're building up that portfolio slowly. The key thing then is where you do that. As you say, with Lebanon, obviously, you know, there's been the problems you've got now going on, and it is proving very difficult for clients there who already have investments onshore that are losing value. So, for example, obviously, that's difficult times, and appreciate that. But as you said, moving forward, what do you do? And I think that's where maybe some of the guys in Cyprus maybe can comment later on the call if they're on today. You know, they went through these problems not that long ago, just 10 years ago, over the last 10 years. And what we found there is Cyprus has been one of our biggest and fastest growing markets. Why? Because they decided the same as you, that they wanted to start moving some of their money offshore, not all of it, because you still need to have some of your money there. It also, I mean, personally for me, I live in Dubai, I've been there 16 years, I own a house there. But do I keep all of my savings there? No, I don't, because I don't know what's going to happen. I could be locked out of the country like I am now for 3 months, and you don't have access to all of that, etc., etc. So 90% of my money is kept offshore, not even in the UK, because in the UK there's limitations on what you can have and the protection and whatever else. So for me, by moving that money offshore and putting into investments offshore personally again, it makes sure that money is secure. I can access it at any time I want to. Doesn't matter where I am in the world. I could be in Australia, I could be in the UK, I could be in Middle East, doesn't matter. I can access that money. And I think that's probably one of the most important things. It's having that accessibility to that money when you need it. The second thing is, with that, you need to make sure it's secure. So it's choosing the right jurisdiction for you where there is protection for those assets and it's well regulated. And I think that's something that we've done well. We have now 3 different regulators, ranging from Cayman Islands, obviously over in the US side of things, across to Malaysia, over in Asia. And we use all of those jurisdictions to make sure that the client's money is safe. And we use a structure around it, a segmented portfolio structure where 100% client protection of those assets happens. And I think that's a key thing for the guys on this call today, is to think about that client protection. If you've got something that is 100% segregated and protected, and you have global custodians like Bank of America making sure that that happens, that's probably the most important thing that you can do, because you have made sure that that money is secure, it's offshore, and it's accessible. So that's the foundations, yeah, for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other bits then is, as you said earlier, Fred, is around then the dollar. Yeah, we spoke about this earlier, and there's another very good Warren Buffett quote around the US dollar always wins. Yeah, no matter what, over the longer term, the US dollar wins. And I could put up some screen shares now, maybe I'll share them with the guys afterwards. We've been talking about this. India's been one of our biggest markets for the last few years. Why? Because the rupee obviously has been devaluing. It's a free floating currency. The same against the euro, same against the pound, same against pretty much any currency in Asia. The dollar always wins. And obviously we've now seen that in Lebanon. It's been pegged. They've been trying to use it as a peg. And obviously that's worked very well in the past, but it hasn't worked so well recently. And the problem with having these pegs is that when they go very quickly. And this is obviously what we've seen now recently. And even, you know, there's been talk in the Middle East, obviously, about currency pegs there. Even there, in countries where, you know, Saudi, UAE have massive amounts of US dollars, even there, they struggle to maintain the peg. So with currencies having, even with that amount of currency, struggling to maintain the peg, it's not surprising really for Lebanon. And unfortunately, that's the scenario we're in now. So I think for me, probably the most important thing is then to start looking at moving that money offshore for the future. As you say, you can't do anything about the past, but you can now start looking at the future, whether that's for your clients or whether that's for yourselves, and making sure you have an offshore income, whether you have offshore savings, and making sure you're building that money up offshore. And that's probably the most important thing I would say for now, is obviously start doing it. If you don't start now, you never will, the same as any regular savings plan. But also make sure you start doing it in a hard currency, in dollars, in euros, in sterling, whatever currency it is that you think will be your base currency maybe in the future. If you think you might move to Europe in the future, or you might move to UK, start using those. If you think you're going to be going to the US or somewhere linked, pegged to the US dollar, start using the dollar. But start thinking about putting it into those hard currencies is probably the most important thing.
Thank you, Phil. I mean, from personal experience also, I mean, with what's going on in the crisis in Lebanon, so there are no US dollars. So if I, you know, hadn't taken my own medicine like I was advising my clients, and I didn't have accounts offshore, today things would be very, very different. I mean, if I would have gone for, you know, the 8% interest rates that they were offering here, compared to getting, you know, 2.5 or 3% from, let's say, an ITA account, it would have been probably a major judgment, error in judgment. So, but there's a couple of things that I was also seeing about offshore, Phil. Number one is you're able, first of all, from a tax perspective, because a lot of us, you know, if we have passports of other countries, sometimes, or we live in European Union countries, you know, we've got that tax aspect where we could be able to, you know, mitigate some of that expense. And the other thing is, a lot of the countries that we live in, we don't have access to a lot of different kinds of investments. And if we're not having something offshore, there's no way to invest in, I mean, in Lebanon, if I wanted to invest in Microsoft or Coca-Cola, I can't do that. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, no, you're right, Fred. And I think, absolutely, and thank you. Tax advantages are one of the biggest things for the offshore bonds and offshore savings plans, as you said. When all of the territories that we use and all of the offshore jurisdictions, the modern offshore jurisdictions, have obviously tax advantages. So there's what we call gross roll-up. So there's no tax whilst that money is offshore. So the money grows tax-free within the wrapper of the offshore savings plan or the bond. And then when the plan actually comes to maturity, you then have a choice. You have a choice of when you take it. You have a choice of where you take it. You have a choice of how much you take, and also how you take it as well. With a lot of the offshore savings plans, there are significant tax advantages. So, well, you just mentioned there maybe Microsoft shares, Fred. Yeah. If you own US listed stocks and shares directly, and you are not a US national, I think the limit is, I think it's about $50,000. Once you go above that, you are then liable for US inheritance tax as a non-US national. So you're on their radar. So some of the biggest cases we've done in the last few years have been guys who work for, or ladies, gents who work for big US corporations who have their stocks and shares in that company. You know, they've been given share options or whatever. And they will be moving $1 million of shares a year into the offshore bond just to avoid that US tax. So again, just one of the reasons. There's Australia as well. There's benefits from being down there. For any of your clients who are thinking about moving to Australia, start a savings plan now. It becomes tax-free now, and it becomes tax-free when you're down there, if you keep it for 10 years. So all of these little things, similar for UK, similar for any country that has a similar taxation system to the UK, there are benefits to having an offshore plan, because you can choose to take income or capital, and you can minimize your tax by doing that. So lots and lots of reasons for doing it tax-wise. But there's also, as you said, Fred, the choice. I know that the choice of products in both Dubai and Lebanon, in a lot of countries where we do business, there's a very limited range of products now. Because they're quite small markets just by themselves. Yeah. But when you start looking at us, we deal with the global market. So we're doing business all the way from China, all the way over to South America and Chile. All around the world we do business. So we can use that economies of scale to create products that are not available in the local markets. And also coming back to that fast fish, we create products quicker than anybody else. So we found back in 2004, just after obviously that first tech crash and so on, a lot of people had lost a lot of money during that tech bubble and the crash afterwards, and the sort of stagnating period there. So at that point, we created some guaranteed return regular savings plans that no one had. And even now, a lot of companies don't have them. The reason we did that was because that's what clients wanted. And then similarly, back in 2008, we created a fixed income lump sum product, again, because that's what people were asking for in 2008, 2009, after the crash there. People didn't want to take too much risk. They wanted 100% capital protection with a nice steady income stream. We created those products straight away. And again, there's very little competition for those products even now, because if you can get first to market with these things, you get first buyer opportunity there. And that's what we've tried to do over the years. Yes, we'll replicate some of the older regular savings contracts and the portfolio bonds, because you have to have those. But if we can come up with new ideas and launch those products quickly, I think that gives you a range of options, whether it's the product structure, the tax, and even the funds underneath it, Fred. As you know, we have the Access Portfolio Bond, which is an open architecture platform. You can buy any stock and share on a major market. You can buy any fund on any of the major markets out there. You can go and buy ETFs. You can buy structured notes. You can buy anything through that platform. A lot of those assets will not be available in the local markets like Lebanon and Cyprus and whatever else. So I think that's another massive advantage of just having that flexibility offshore. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Fred, let me ask Phil a question. Phil, that now the Lebanese people, they have big problems, especially with the bank in Lebanon and the Lebanese people who live in Lebanon. But as I can see, the Lebanese people living outside Lebanon, they have two problems. They have the problem of their money locked in the bank in Lebanon already, or their savings, and they have another problem of the money they are making outside Lebanon. So they are worried if they don't want to send it to Lebanon to the bank and already they have problem in the bank. And at the same time, they don't want to keep it in the banks where they work, for example, in Arab country or in Europe. So what do you have, or what ITA? I know the answers, but I want to hear this from you. What do you have as a solution for our Lebanese diaspora living outside Lebanon about the saving or the money that they have, and maybe they want to put it for 2-3 years till this situation pass?
Yeah, sure, Naji. Thank you. Nice, great leading question. It's for us, as you say, you're absolutely right. For those clients that are in Lebanon and the money's already locked up there, we know it's difficult to get out at the moment, and there are there's a few options at the moment. Hopefully, with things with the IMF happening, maybe things will change. But for those Lebanese clients that are outside, whether that's in the Middle East, in Africa, etc., they will have, as you say, that money that we would normally send home. They normally repatriate. That money can easily be saved offshore into an offshore savings plan, anything from $100 a month. That's 350 dirhams nearly, or whatever. Whatever that might be, is still not too much, and they can start saving that offshore into a savings plan. So we have savings plans that, as you say, are short as 1 year, and they go up to 25 years. So the choice is there for everybody to be able to use. And once you've done that, obviously you can then put that money aside, choose the investments you want to go into. It could be a nice low risk fund, it could be a higher risk fund. Choice is yours. All of those options are there. And that's where I suppose you need to make sure you've got specialist advisors like yourself, Naji, like Fred, who have the experience of doing this and working with you to make sure you select the right options and so on. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Those opportunities are there, and I think it's probably a fantastic place for those Lebanese diaspora that scattered all around Middle East and Africa and then Asia, Australia, to be able to use some of that money to save it offshore, to have it ready and available for them in the future for whatever opportunities are there. Whether that's things get better in Lebanon, and as you say, the money goes back on shore and is invested quickly, and you get an opportunity to buy a business or buy a house or whatever it might be. That becomes an opportunity, but you can take it in when you want to, when the exchange rate is right, when the opportunity is right.
Excellent, thank you.
Phil, I mean, thanks so much for all the information. I don't know, maybe we just open up the floor if there's any of the attendees who have any questions, we could take them. So.
I was going to say, while we're waiting for the question, whilst we're waiting for the questions to come in, I mean, one of the things you said there, Fred, was the key thing with this is choosing the right partners to do this with, and making sure that you're using respected, well-known product providers, etc. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to risk and reward. We were talking yesterday about you could get higher interest rates in the banks in Lebanon in US dollars than you could do in Dubai previously, and the same you could get higher in Dubai than you can do in the US. Why? Because there is a slight risk to that. It might still be in US dollars, but there is a risk. So you're getting that little bit of return for the extra risk. So people need to be aware of that and make sure that obviously take the right level of risk for your attitude towards getting that reward. So at the end of the day, please make sure you're looking at the right product for yourself, and make sure you're getting the right reward as well. If people can guarantee a return, that obviously make sure that you get that return at the end of the day. That's what we try and do with some of our products because clients prefer it. Or if you want to take the freedom of the market, do that as well.
Excellent. We have a question from one of the attendees. He's asking for someone who had never invested internationally before, how would you guarantee the credibility of the investment, especially that people used to trust the banks and now they lost this trust?
Yeah, good question, Fred, and thank you. I can see that coming in. That's what I was literally just saying there. I think you need to trust somebody who you've known for a long time and working with for a while, which obviously you guys have. I think at the end of the day as well, we work with we spoke earlier about the segmentation, and the guys that we work with are Bank of America and a company called Brown Brothers Harriman. They're the largest and oldest private bank in the US. So we're working with probably the largest bank in the world, Bank of America, and BVH, the largest private bank. And those are the guys that make sure that the money is safe for your clients. So they're the level of protection that we give. And these are the US entities. They're not offshore entities or anything like that. These are the proper US entities. We use KPMG as our auditors. We want to use the best. For the guarantors on our guaranteed regular savings plans, we're using the big global banks. So we're using Citibank, HSBC, Barclays, Morgan Stanley, all those names that people know and trust, and as we spoke about earlier, are very well protected and secure nowadays.
Okay, thanks, Bill. There's a question from Sharbil. It says, can you pay from a local Lebanese account? And if yes, up to how much? So, Sharbil, the money that are in the accounts in Lebanon that show on our passbooks, that money doesn't exist. If it did, it would be no problem to move that money abroad. So that's, a complicated question a bit. If a person has a monthly saving plan and he has the ability to use his credit card for a certain limit on international charges, then he would be able to purchase that type of a policy and make the payment from a Lebanese credit card. The problem is that the banks every month keep reducing that limit. So that considers to be a risk. The only other way to get money out of the banking system, which is what they're trying to force us to do, is to basically take a haircut on it. If you can get the fresh funds and redeposit, then you can get the money basically abroad. But to do that today, Yet yesterday I was told that the exchange companies are taking 58% of every US dollar to do that.
Sorry to interrupt, Fred. To continue, Nicholas, to continue this question regarding the clients that we already have here in Lebanon, that they cannot pay their payments. Is ITA or Investors Trust are trying to manipulate something so they don't lose their accounts as it's still young accounts?
Hi, Nicholas. Good to hear from you. Yeah, we are. We're looking at this. I mean, we've not been able to put a sort of a global solution in place for that because it's very difficult because every client is different and every situation is different. But you're right. For those clients that are still within the initial period, it's quite difficult. For those outside of the earlier periods, obviously they can take breaks from the premiums and they can do those sorts of things. Within the initial periods at the moment, they can't, but we will look at those on a case-by-case basis. And what we have also said is that we're going to be looking at doing campaigns over the next year or two to enable clients to then be able to get back into the investments when they are able to, when things change around a little bit. I also saw, I just want to follow up on this one because there was a question from Roy there before we skip on too far. Before links back into the...
Bill, 1 second for Nicholas. Nicholas, I have run into several issues as the credit card limits get reduced that some of the clients are having to use more than one of their credit cards onshore to be able to make the payment of the policy. And when you hit that brick wall, as they say, the clients so far have not had a real objection to getting fresh money to put in the account because at least they know they're getting that out of here. And it's still, they're small amounts on a monthly basis, just to, answer that fully for you. Okay, Phil.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah. And Roy, thank you for the question there about security. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying. I suppose, yes, at the end of the day, the money that we hold, we physically actually don't hold. Bank of America holds that money. What we do is we charge our fees to Bank of America and they pay our fees to us. So we never physically actually hold the client's funds. They're held by Bank of America and BBH. So what would happen, let's just say Investors Trust did close or go bankrupt, then that money would still be there. It would still be protected by Bank of America and BBH. Client's money would still be there. It would still be managed. It would still be invested with BlackRock, iShare, Franklin Templeton, whoever the money was invested with. It would still be exactly as they expected it to be. It would just be someone else would be managing it. So there's no risk to the client from that side. But just to cover off that, I suppose, the risk to us going bankrupt. I think I mentioned earlier in the call, we just had a record start to the year this year. Personally, I know of a lot of our advisors who were using other companies have now moved to us. Why? And it comes on to some of the sales bits I wanted just to talk about. It's that one, it's down to our tech in that we can allow you guys to do business online. You can be sat in Lebanon, you can have a client in Dubai, and you can sign them up today. We had a client in Nairobi. I was there at the time doing some training for a broker. One of the directors came in and said, I've got this client. She's just told me she's got $250,000 to invest in an old mutual policy. She's now living in the Seychelles. I can't see her. It's going to take me weeks to sign that up because I've got to send the paperwork there, then back again. It'll be wrong, so I'll go back again. No control whatsoever. So I said, well, why don't you talk to her and do it with us? He spoke to her that just straight away. He completed the application form. She sent the money the same day. The money was with us the same day. And the policy was issued the same day. So technology can help as part of that. But also, you obviously you need to be able to make sure that that technology is protected and everything else as well. So from my side, I think probably the key thing is, are you changing your habits? And it was one of the things I know Fred said earlier in the call. I saw a very good article the other day. I like doing my psychology bit, and it was all around natural selection. And natural selection for a lot of people is that fight or flight syndrome, or as someone put it, deer in the headlights. And the scenario at the moment with the markets crashing and everything happening in Lebanon as it is, have you just frozen and you're stood there waiting? You're the deer in the headlights waiting for the car to hit you. Yeah, or are you running? Are you doing something? Are you working hard? You're trying something different. I know Fred and Naji are doing more and more online. I know they're looking at diversifying where they do business. So yeah, I know Fred's been doing business in the Middle East for a long time. Yeah, we were talking about Africa. You know, all of these different things you can do personally to change your habits, change how you're doing things. And I think these things can make a big difference. I've been speaking to a lot of my clients over the last few months stuck in the UK. One of the few benefits of being in the UK, obviously the weather is much colder, which is not so nice, but and there's a bit more rain. But the key thing for me has been I can get online more easily. The phone bill is $20 a month rather than $300 a month, and I can speak to all of my brokers throughout Europe for free. So guess what? I've spoken to more of them. And guess what? We're getting more business. It's the same for the guys on the ground, the brokers I've spoken to. Some of the guys I know have started doing a lot more online, and they've doubled the number of meetings they're doing. Yeah. So by doing that, you're going to double the business. They're also doing things that Eric Feng was doing a presentation, I know, for you guys a couple of weeks ago, and he gave some brilliant ideas on how to do online business and how to generate more leads. Because a lot of the stuff you can do online with existing clients and cross-sell to them, yeah, because they've got an existing policy, you can do that cross-sell more easily. But for guys who may be new to this, you need to have those ideas. So it's a combination of having a choice and working hard on that new online sort of proposition as well. Because you're not just going to be able to drive across Beirut anymore and pop into an office. I know in Dubai, in our office in Dubai, there's no visitors. We're not allowed visitors. You can't just think about, oh, I got a piece of paperwork wrong. Let's go and pop around, have a cup of coffee and see him and do that. It's not going to be so easy anymore. So you need to be changing your habits for that. But also clients want you to change your habits. I spoke to a broker called Lennox, who Fred knows well. Lennox is a little bit older than us, isn't he, Fred? And his clients are older than him. And you know, so he's got clients in their 60s. They don't want to see him because they're scared. They don't want to see people at all. But they're very happy to see him online. He said he's been doing more business online because of this with his older clients, because they're developing, they're changing. If people in their 60s and 70s can do this. My mum is 80. She's doing so much stuff online now. My God, the shopping bill's gone through the roof. But all of these people can change and the habits can change. And I think probably the key thing for me is, are you guys changing? Thanks, Phil. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We're always.
Freddie, if you let me speak for 1 minute, and you can close, my friend. Phil, thank you so much. But why we came with this session, because now I think ITA already they were so ready for what's happening now. So I think you were ready. Maybe you saw that something coming in 20 years to the market. So you saw this virus is coming. The point that we can take it now, it's we don't need to go to the bank to save. We don't need to go to see the insurance advisor face to face to see what we need to do or where to invest. The point is, first of all, to diversify our savings, not to put all our eggs in one basket, to put some money in offshore business, and especially for the Lebanese people living outside Lebanon, not to put, and even for the people who live in Lebanon. So I have a plan in ITA, and I know that in 20 years from now, at least some of my saving is not in the country. So and sure, for some advisors now it helps a lot, this product. So why I'm talking about this point, because now we are letting our clients know more and more what they have solutions in the market, what they have companies they can benefit from it, and the importance of having good saving and long-term saving and short-term saving, and most of the important is to have a forced saving, because nothing is permanent in life. The good day is not permanent, and the bad day is not permanent. But what we need to make sure is to have a good backup plan if something happens, or for the bad days. And thank you for the info. And sorry, Fred, to interrupt you.
Don't worry. Thank you, Naji. Thanks, Phil. Thank you, everybody who joined us. And we're always available if you need anything. and have a great rest of the day and rest of the week. Stay safe, guys.
Thank you, Fred. Thanks for the
Stay
opportunity.
safe,
Nice to meet you
everyone.
guys.
God
Hopefully
bless.
see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. God bless you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.